Have you ever wondered about video game subscription boxes? These companies that you pay a monthly fee to and they mail you mystery games that you get to keep? Well, today we're going to be opening 2 months worth of Retro Game Treasure and 2 months worth of Video Games Monthly to see if these companies are really worth it. Now with Video Games Monthly, you just tell them what games you have and what systems you want to receive games for. I've picked the Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Genesis, and Super Nintendo, and we're going to be seeing what we get from them. You can pick between 3, 4, 5, and 10 games a month. I've picked 5 games a month. So for the 2 months, we should be receiving 10 games in total, and we're going to be checking out if this service is really worth the money. Now with Retro Game Treasure, they actually have a wish list. You can put down some games you want to receive, and I've added all the Game Boy systems for them. Quick disclaimer, I pay for all these myself, and these companies have no control over what I say and what my opinions are. The first thing we have is a card telling us to post to social media, which we're doing. And it tells you to update your library so you don't get doubles of games. And the first thing we've gotten is some sort of a collector's pin. It looks a little squished. Now, they did have some trouble with my address. That's admittedly my fault. So they actually packed both months into one box, which is why it looks so kind of squished, and mailed it back out to me. So let's see what we got in this collector's pin bag. Looks like a little Yoshi from Mario Kart. It's a nice metal, high quality pin. But the first game we got today was Tetris 2 for the Super Nintendo. Never played this before. It has some writing on the back. It says Video Game Warehouse. Alright, Tetris 2 for the Super Nintendo. We will be doing gameplay for all the games we received today. Now this game seems to answer the question, what happens when you try to fix a problem that doesn't exist? So they've kind of tried to play with the Tetris formula, which didn't need fixing. And they've come up with this. It isn't a terrible game. It's got the Tetris shapes, but it also has a bunch of weird new shapes. And it's kind of hard to retrain your brain because you're not actually trying to make lines so much of pieces. You're trying to match the colors. But when I was playing this, my brain naturally wants me to just start making rows of Tetris pieces and not pay attention to the colors, which is actually not at all what I'm supposed to be doing. But pretty cool to get this in the collection. It did have some writing on it, and the top label was a little messed up, but it's the first game in the box, so we're going to give them a pass for now and see what happens as we go on. Now with Video Games Monthly, there's also the possibility that you can get a 1, 2, or 3 up in each box, so you could receive extra games each month. So we'll have a minimum of 10 games in this box, but it could be more than that. We'll have to see as we go through this. And the next game we've got in this box is The Adventures of Bayou Billy. This one looks pretty clean, not too many tears in the label. Now checking this out, it seems to be some sort of fighting game. The problem with this is they've almost made it more like instead of less like a beat 'em up, they've made it more like a fighting game. Like each battle is a one-on-one fight, sometimes 2-on-1. It's kind of difficult. Okay, next game is Super Battle Tank 2 for the Super Nintendo. Another game I've never really played before. Has a little bit of a sticker on the back, but I'm sure I could just pick that off. So let's check out Super Battle Tank 2. Alright, so this one, you're traveling around a map with objectives, trying to take out enemy tanks and supply dumps. There's even like helicopters you can find and get into fights with. Once you destroy everything the enemy has, you move on to the next mission, using the map to find all the enemies. Kind of a cool little game. I don't hate it, that's for sure. Cool to add this to the collection. Yeah, this is what the map looks like. You use it to find the little white enemy symbols and then destroy them with your tank, battling them. Alright, so the next game I've definitely played before, and it is Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition. Again, a little bit of a sticker stuck to the back, but I'm sure that'll come right off. Now, I think just about everyone's played Street Fighter II at some point before. It's probably available on every system, but it's cool to have a nice copy of this in the collection. So far, all the games in the box have been loose with no manual or box or anything. But of course, we got to show off a little Street Fighter. I have not played this game in a very, very long time, so I definitely do not remember any of the moves or how to play this, but had to check this out because it's super cool to receive in the box and add to the collection. So far, this service seems to be great for filling out your collection if you're just getting back into it. And next we have Disney's The Jungle Book. Seems like there was some sticker stuck to the label. So this seems to be a bit of a platformer game. And some of these older Disney platformers like The Jungle Book and The Lion King can actually be quite difficult, which I would have expected them to be kind of like an easy kids game, but these do not mess around. Okay, so next we have Airwolf, based on the hit TV series. Never heard of the TV show before. It's probably before my time. I'm assuming it's some sort of helicopter show from the 80s. Alright, so you kind of fly around and shoot down enemy planes and try and dodge their shots. Kind of figuring this one out a little bit. It's not a terrible game. It would have been nice to have a manual to help me figure out how to play this. Okay, so next we have Top Gun: The Second Mission from Konami. I've definitely heard of the first game. It's kind of notoriously bad. And again, there's something stuck to it. So let's check out Top Gun: Second Mission. I've heard nothing about this game before. So it seems like you can buy different weapons to use. Again, I'm gonna have to look up manuals online for some of these games, the ones that I enjoy and want to play again, because it would be super helpful to figure out how to play these games. And some of them are not immediately obvious putting them in, but definitely cool to have this. It seems to play a lot like the last game where we're flying around shooting at enemy planes. You know, I just don't think these games can top the Afterburner series, as hard as they try. So that was Top Gun 2 Second Mission on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Very cool. So the next game we have, also for the NES, is going to be Silent Service. It looks like some sort of submarine game, and oh, it is dirty. It looks like this has been in a basement or garage for like 30 years. I wish they'd clean up these games before they sent them out. So let's check out Silent Service. Now this kind of highlights one problem with the service. You definitely require a manual to play this game. Without a manual to go with this game, I have no idea how to play it, and it's not immediately obvious just popping it in. You have a bunch of controls on the bottom of the screen, and the D-pad acts like a mouse to control your sub, I guess, but I can't figure out how to play that. Okay, so next we have Vindicators, a Tengen game for Nintendo Entertainment System. I've never heard of this one before, so it's going to be cool to check this out. The back label's a little ripped, but I'm excited to check this one out because I've never heard of this game before. Now, you don't have too many options with Video Games Monthly. You just pick the amount of games you want and they send you whatever for the systems you pick. But with Retro Game Treasure, it gives you an option of whether you want quality labels or just more extra games. You do get more games for the price with Video Games Monthly. The price for a Retro Game Treasure is pretty close to around the 5-game price for Video Games Monthly, but you have kind of less options with them. I have recently learned that you can email them a wish list of games, of things you want to receive, but it's an actual option right on Retro Game Treasure. You can pick the games you want to receive, and they'll try and get some of them into each box. With that service, you can actually get accessories for the system as well. I'm not sure what that's going to include, but I've selected it just to see what they send us. Now, so far, this game is actually a lot of fun. This has got to be up there with Street Fighter and the Jungle Book for pretty fun games that they've sent me so far. But in terms of label quality and condition, it's kind of been hit or miss so far with Video Games Monthly. Of course, this one seems to be in great shape, and this one is WrestleMania. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything on this one. Now, this is a cool piece of history just because we have a wrestling game from the 80s, and we're going to check out some 80s wrestlers, I guess. Such a cool era of wrestling. We have the $1 Million Man, Bam Bam Bigelow, Honky Tonk Man, Macho Man Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, and Hulk Hogan, of course. Now, I don't think they had quite figured out the whole wrestling system and gameplay when they were making these games. So it's not the greatest wrestling game you'll ever play, but it's cool to add to the collection and just see all these legends in the ring again. And we've already done 10 games, so this is actually a bonus. We have Ice Hockey for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and this is in great condition. They must have sent us an extra bonus game, so that's very cool. I never played this one growing up. Admittedly, I was more of a Blades of Steel kind of kid, but it's really cool to add this to the collection and check it out. It's a good, solid game of hockey for the original Nintendo. I don't know, there was something very simple about sports games back then, and they seemed a lot cooler and more fun because You had never really experienced something like this when it came out. But if you want a good solid game of hockey for the original Nintendo, you really can't go wrong with this one. It was very cool to receive this in the box. And this is going to wrap up 2 months worth of Video Games Monthly. In total, we got 11 games and 1 collector's pin. So next we're going to be checking out Retro Game Treasure. Very excited to see what they sent us. So we have 2 of these boxes. They won't all fit on the shelf. The first one comes in this cool little treasure box. The second one kind of came in a random white box, so we'll get to that in a little bit, but let's see what we have in here first. Okay, the first game is kind of a legendary one. It says Gale on it, but this is the original Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt combo. Now, I think everyone's familiar with this game, but this is an awesome game to get in the first box from Retro Game Treasure. Now, what's cool is this game was on my wish list, and they actually sent it. So we've got one of the original killer apps for the original Nintendo. This game helped single-handedly end the video game crash. Every kid, when this came out, wanted a copy of this. And it's a cool piece of history just to add back into the collection. I definitely played this game to death as a little kid. Alright, so let's see what we have next from Retro Game Treasure. A cool little Yoshi stylus for the DS and 3DS. Because I did put the handheld systems on here just to see what we'd get. And the next game we got is Bionicle. It's a Lego game, I guess. Now this is kind of interesting because when this came out, they really hadn't figured out kind of the system for Lego video games that we now currently kind of know and love, with like the Lego Star Wars games and the like Lego Marvel and Batman series. They kind of hadn't figured that out yet, so this is a little janky to play, a little interesting. Okay, what's next in here? We have Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam for the Game Boy Advance. So 2 Game Boy Advance games in here.
Hey, I just traveled around the world to find the most outrageous locations for a new downhill championship. I found some really cool places to race, but now I need to round up some of the best racers to compete. You look like you know how to get some speed out of your board. Think you're up for the challenge? Great! The first race takes place in San Francisco. Time to find some transportation for you.
Kind of cool to see a Tony Hawk game on Game Boy.
Since I gotta take care of some business things here, I'll let you use my private jet so you can fly to all the race locations.
I guess he's just giving us his private jet.
Hey, just a heads up, each track has its own champion who will try to beat you in your race. So pay close attention to any secrets they may give up to you. Good luck!
Now, when I get out to the levels in this game has been freezing, so I don't know if it needs to be cleaned or if it's just not working right, but that's a new interesting problem from these services. Now we have Lego. I've never heard of this game before. It's the first one we've received in a box. I'm just going to assume it's like the last Lego game, and we'll move on to next month's Retro Game Treasure box. Now, I was mentioning this earlier, but this just came in a giant white box, bigger than the other one, so I'm not sure why, but we're going to figure that out as we open this up. I'm assuming maybe they sent us some sort of accessory, But the first game in here is a very clean copy of Skate or Die. Now this one I think would take me a bit of practice to get good at. I mean, it didn't seem terrible, but because I've never played it before, I've definitely not gotten good at this yet. But I think with some practice I could figure this game out. Pretty cool to get another original Nintendo game and add it to the collection. I'm gonna have piles of them by the end of today, it seems. But yeah, there's different events. This one's kind of like a downhill race. I figured I'd check it out since the Tony Hawk downhill game wasn't really working. But there's like half pipe and like versus battles you can play in Skate or Die. Alright, so the next game we got is Nigel Mansell's World Championship for the Super Nintendo. Never heard of this before, but it's about what I expected. It's kind of behind the steering wheel racing sim for the Super Nintendo. If this is your type of game, it seems very cool. Not my favorite type of racing game, but I kind of more prefer the arcade style games from the time. Something more like Mario Kart or Road Rash. But it's cool to have a racing sim game, especially for the Super Nintendo. Now the next game they sent us was Miss Pac-Man for Sega Genesis. I've played this game on many different systems before, but it's kind of cool to have a physical copy for the Sega Genesis. Now, I think everybody's somewhat familiar with the Pac-Man games. And it's one of those games you don't think needs improving from the original Pac-Man, but somehow they managed to pull it off with Miss Pac-Man, and just about everybody seems to say this is the better of the games. And it seems like a pretty faithful port of the game to play at home, so that's very cool. So this is kind of another legendary piece of video game history to be receiving from Retro Game Treasure. Probably not a super expensive game to get, but still happy to have it. And I'll definitely spend some time playing this game, because, come on, it's Pac-Man. Alright, so our next thing in the box, and this is the reason it came in such a giant box, is because there's a massive Sega Genesis 6-button controller in here. Now that is something I did put on my wish list, so it was cool to receive that. And that's going to round out 2 months of Retro Game Treasure. So, kind of final thoughts on the services. If it's something you're interested in, they do send you kind of loose games, not so many complete in-box copies. It's a great way to fill out your collection if you're just getting back into collecting video games or trying to fill out certain consoles in your collection. You don't really have control over the quality or the games that you're getting. You're kind of just receiving whatever they happen to send. But it was very cool to check these out. If you're interested in the services, we'll leave a link to their websites below in the description. Thanks for checking out our video today, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.